What's good, everyone?
I'm Jendrek, and this is episode number 12 of the State of Modern. So a lot has happened in the first week of the new MH2 fueled Modern, and I'm gonna tackle everything to the best of my ability. First of all, I'm gonna update the top 10 list that I've made last week, based on both my experiences and what I saw on other people's streams. Then I'm gonna share 3 decks that I'm most excited to try out and talk a bit about each of them. Now let's roll up some music and jump straight into it. So let's just start off this list with me making a plausible excuse as why some of the busted stuff didn't make the list in the first place. So to be 100% honest with you, I just forgot that Urza's Saga was in the set because it's been spoiled in the first wave of spoilers. And even if I remembered about it, I think I wouldn't give it more than like 5 or 6 slot on the list. The second big thing that's missing from the list was Asmo, or the Asmo Run or something, alongside its cookbook, that I was perfectly aware of, unlike the saga, and I just deliberately omitted it from my list because I deemed them not to be strong enough. So those are the two big misses, I guess, from the list. And now let's talk briefly about a card that I think was a much larger hit than I thought it will be. And the card is Dragon's Rage Channeler. So initially it was on number 10 on my list, and now it's skyrocketed to the number 4 after I've played a few leagues with it. Because honestly, it's just so astonishing how strong this card is, how stable it is at enabling Delirium as soon as turn 2, and on turn 3 with ease most of the time. And it's basically the Delver that Delver fans were waiting for a long time by now. So, to sum up, the new list is as follows. Number 10 is Grief, number 9 is Ragavan, number 8 is Counterspell, number 7 is Shardless Agent, number 6 is Subtlety, number 5 is Murktide Regent, number 4 is Dragon's Rage Channeler, number 3 is Asmo alongside Cookbook, number 2 is Dottie Voidwalker, and number 1, of course, it's Urza's Saga. Okay, so with that list out of the way, let's move on to some sweet decks that I'll use in my attempts to beat all of those busted cards. Well, I will also use some of them. Alright, fair warning. I've played 0 matches with 2 of those decks so far that I'm about to show you. Well, I guess I've played a bunch with Dragon Rage's Channeler, but not with the version I'm about to show you right now, so let's say one and a half of those decks instead of 2. So let's begin with the one I've actually run in a league, and it's Bug Lurus. It was the very first deck that I've played after MH2 released, and after watching how the format develops and making some upgrades, this is the deck I'm excited the most about as of today. Green sideboard cards seem very strong right now due to Urza's Saga, and the ability to tutor some really impactful bullets via Bring to Light is quite potent. Since the last time I've played with the deck, I actually managed to get my hands on some Dottie Voidwalkers, and I was pretty pleased with how they performed. I'd like to find the place for the 4th copy as well, but so far I have no clue how much artifact and enchantment hate will really be needed, so I'd rather be safe than sorry and possibly overdo myself on that front. I've also added the second Valky back to the deck, as drawing the only copy before turn 5 when you have a chance to bring to light for it is backbreaking, and has been backbreaking to me multiple times so far. As far as the sideboard goes, the real gem is Crime Punishment, or more precisely, the punishment half of the card. It can wipe everything from Urza's Saga to all the tokens they created both with Urza Sagas and stuff like Cookbook or Witch's Oven, as well as Asmo itself. While leaving your Dotties and Snapcaster Mages and Lures and whatnot safe on the board. It also has a nice flexibility of being castable for 3 or more mana to clear other stuff like the aforementioned Cookbook or Witch's Oven, but it will mostly be a 2 mana sweeper. Other than that, some Nature's Claims and some Creeping Corrosion. That's conveniently tutorable off of a Bring to Light, round out the Artifact Hate suite. Overall, I've been pleased with the deck and will continue working on it. Moving forward, the next deck I wanted to talk about is the aforementioned Blue-Red Delverless Delver, for the lack of more catchy name for the archetype. Even though everyone's favorite 1-mana Mosquito didn't make the cut, this deck plays like the Delver decks of yore, and DRC, as I mentioned before, is the 1-mana threat tempo players wanted for all those years. As far as the card choices go, I don't know how good Expressive Iteration is, instead of something like, for example, Archmage's Charm that see some success in the archetype in hands of Spiring Spike and other people. And I kind of want to try Unholy Heat, but I don't know what to cut for it, since I'd rather have all my burn spells in the main deck with the ability to go face, but Unholy Heat at least is probably quite potent as a sideboard option for blue-red colors, which are historically quite bad at dealing with creatures with more than 3 points of toughness. Just like in the Lurus deck, there's a sizable anti-Saga package in the board containing 3 Blood Moons and 2 Shatterstorms. I don't really know how it works precisely, but Blood Moon kills Saga on the spot. It has something to do with the fact that Blood Moon takes away all those abilities, and if you have Saga with 0 counters on it, it still has the property of Saga sacrificing itself with no counters, I think it has no chapters, but it still have the Saga ability to sacrifice itself when the last chapter is reached, and since there are no chapters, you are just sucking it instantly, but I'm not 100% sure that's how it works. I just know that Blood Moon wipes Saga. And Shatterstorm, on top of that, can clean up their stuff nicely without touching any of our own stuff. So when you fall down, or fall behind rather on tempo, you can just keep beating them while clearing their half of the board, which is obviously very, very strong. Rest of the board is still kinda random since the format is so open, and I expect it to be more and more refined with every passing day. Last but not least is my take on the archetype that people ask me about the most after MH2, maybe aside from Esper Control, and that's Stoneblade. I've seen a lot of lists floating around running stuff like Esper Sentinel, Dagon, and Kaldra, and frankly I think all of those cards are pretty bad. In my opinion, the best pickup from MH2 for the deck is Dottie Voidwalker, as it carries equipments exceptionally well thanks to Shadow, and on top of that is just a cracked card overall, making the number 1 on the first list and number 2 on the revised list of the strongest card from MH2 in my opinion. So this is how I would build the deck, and the one thing that I recommend changing if you are not an absolute psycho like I am, is to cut the Riptide Laboratory for another blue-black land, preferably either River of Tears or Drowned Catacombs. As far as other new cards go, I've got a Prismatic Ending here and there, some subtleties on the board, and 1 copy of Vindicate as a nice, well-rounded catch-all. I think the mana base can't really support them over Damnation, but this is the kind of deck that probably would benefit the most from it, so if for some reason I decide to add more white mana to the deck, I will probably make the switch. So this is all I wanted to talk about regarding those 3 decks. Let's move on to some closing thoughts that I have about the format as a whole. So, is Modern broken right now? I honestly think it's too early to tell, and I'm really starting to get annoyed with people just clamoring for bans instead of actually trying to build things and counteract the allegedly broken stuff. I think it's kind of this kind of negativity ruins a lot of perfectly fine formats, because people are just not focusing on the actual game because it's easier to vent on Twitter. Like, imagine, for example, if the Theros Khans Battle for Zendikar standard era was happening right now instead of 6 or so years ago. Like, do you really think that Siege Rhino would have lasted 2 years in the standard with the Twitter mob whining about it 24/7? I really don't think so, and honestly, it really, really sucks. I think that bans are supposed to be either the last resort or a safety valve when experimenting with some actually outlandish or weird designs. Like, for example, Urza's Saga, that's just so weird of a card that it was very, very hard to assess its power. And then, after being thoroughly tested for multiple weeks or months in many formats, you might ban it if it's really, really necessary. Regarding Modern itself, I'm honestly amazed by how diverse it feels right now, and I love this honeymoon period when everybody is trying out their stuff. Is there a possibility that something in the set is broken beyond saving? Well, yes, obviously. But once again, it's too early to tell, and taking stuff like Urza's Saga ban for granted and saying that it will be 100% banned in the next 6 months or less is just turbo lame, and honestly feels very counterproductive as players. Well, we don't really have any agency over how the ban list is changing, so it's just pointless. Well, I guess it's all I wanted to say today, and sorry that I vented a bit on the end of the video, and I hope it didn't take any enjoyment out of you watching this video. I'm gonna be back next week with some more updates on the format, as well as the regular streams as usual, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, starting at 1 p.m. Central European. Links to the stream, all my socials, and the deck list I mentioned are down below in the description of this video. Take care and have a lovely weekend.